Thank you. Thank you very much, Simon. I'm not entirely sure I recognize the person that stands before you. This has to be one of the most terrifying things I've ever done in my life, almost as terrifying as meeting the headhunters recently. Firstly, because there's so many of you in the room, and blinded by these lights, I can't. Perhaps it's it's a good thing I can't see all of you. Secondly, because you know exactly what I'm going to talk about. I am going to talk about being a CIO, being an IT director, and working in technology. And I think that's pretty much what we all do here. Many of you are close friends. Thank you very much for coming. And many of you I know professionally. That means I also know, as Richard said to me, I won't be able to get away with anything because you actually know what it's like. So I think I'm the winner of this year's Coals to Newcastle, or Teaching Granny to Suck Eggs award. And neither, to help me, do I have Barack Obama's speechwriters to help. So I'm going to try and nick one of his jokes to kick off in Westminster Hall yesterday. You remember that, if you heard it, that he made a rather good joke about previous speakers in Westminster Hall had been the Pope, Her Majesty the Queen, and now the President of the United States. So I asked Simon who else he had doing this kind of gig. And he said it was the government CIO, the head of Saatchi's, the advertising agency, and the head chap of a chocolate company. Now, similarly, there probably is a rather good joke in there somewhere trying to get out, but it's probably unrepeatable at this time of the evening, or indeed, I daren't make it. Clearly, I don't have any speechwriters to help me, though I was at one point a speechwriter in my time when I was in government. I've got this, so I was going to try and attempt the Jake Humphrey thing for you F1 fans out there. So there is a hashtag, which is, I think, Simon, LFA Coby, LFACOBY. So if any of you want to go there, so many thanks to Speedbird Newcastle, who's an old friend of mine, who sent good luck, and there's somebody called S. Blandford, who's looking forward to hearing me. Now, those of you who know me know that S. Blandford is my wife. So there you go. What I'm going to do is I'm going to signal for the next slide. Good. It works. First thing to say is I really want this evening to be useful to you, and I'm really not, as wonderful as Simon made out at the start, as will become readily apparent as we go through this. But if at least some of you leave saying that you heard 2 or 3 things of real practical use, I think that would have been very useful indeed. So that's really the test. And actually, when I did publish this thing, and actually I've self-published it, so I do commend you, lulu.com. If you keep getting those rejection letters as I did from the publishers, just stick it in an Adobe file, upload it, and it's remarkable, another miracle of the internet. So hopefully we get something out of this. Could I have the next one, please? So what you can expect. Some of you may or may not have read it, but anyway, what this thing does has 50 things that I really thought I wanted to know. And I did it at a rather dull board meeting, and I'm not going to reveal what it was, but you know how these things drone on. So I thought, I'll try and write down a few things that I think I ought to learn, and actually they're originally written down as my own aid memoirs. So since I've just joined John Lewis, and there's Kevin, who's my close colleague, my twin at Waitrose is here, and also some colleagues from John Lewis, I thought it was actually quite a good time to mark myself out of 10 on these things. So I'm going to give you my personal marks and where I think I did well and where I did less well, shall we say. Then are the 50 things still relevant if you move from airlines to retail? A little bit about leadership because people talk a lot about it, and I think it's an interesting concept these days, particularly in the world of technology. A little bit about technology, because I think that really, really matters. And quite often, you know, when you hear all these management twaddle that gets talked about being a CIO, they leave the technology out, which is a terrible shame. Then a few CIO maxims or one-liners at the end, and questions and some hopefully answers. And as Simon said, we're very keen that actually, you know, we can make this a bit interactive. It's both more fun and more dangerous for me, but I think probably more profitable as well. So hopefully there'll be some time at the end. We can make some time for some questions and hopefully answers. Now, Roman history. The actual first book I self-published was a tome called the Roman governor Agricola's Conquest of Northern Britain, 77 to 84 AD. A work of limited interest to most people, but it's really good. There's some fabulous maps in there, and it really is groundbreaking stuff. So, you know, when you buy your 50 copies, you could get one of those as well. So I am going to try and make this a little bit different, or look a bit different, since I'm going to have some classical references in picture form as we go through, some of which are relevant, some of which are less relevant. Anyway, so quick recap on what the 50 things are. This is Socrates, the great philosopher, laying down, I think that's the gesture, what things are. And here you see somebody who didn't pay attention. He's very sad, and others going around. Next slide, please. Now, I promise I'm not going to talk about every one of these, honest. But I just wanted to sort of flash them up just so you know what I'm talking about. And then I'm going to come on to the good ones and the less good ones. And the first lot were about getting started. And the one thing here, and I don't know if there are any of my colleagues who did this job are in there, is appointing IT business partners. And you know, I felt that in every job I've done as IT director CIO, actually having somebody who manages that relationship into the business, who can actually protect you. And when I first became CIO at British Airways, I felt like the ball in the pinball machine, because all the directors were demanding things. They were telling me their blinking BlackBerry didn't work, and they were saying, you know, I need a new system. I've got to spend 20 million quid on that. Don't you? And. You will know exactly what that's like. So actually allocating some of your guys to face off to each part of the business, I really, really think is a key thing to do, and absolutely something that I think protects the CIO from being pulled every which way, but it also gives the directors, the departments in the business, somebody they can see really as their IT person, somebody they can rely on. And their job is to make the IT department perform, and also to inspire the business with actually what technology can do for the business. Next, please. Running smoothly. Keep it and keep IT simple. The one thing I can't stand, and it's probably, no, it isn't because of that. The one thing I really, really can't stand is when people in IT start talking obscurely. Now, every profession's guilty of this in terms of trying to, sound good, saying obscure, muttering about service-oriented architecture and Linux and all sorts of things, and then actually talking to the business in terms they can't understand. I think our job as IT directors, as CIOs, as chief technology officers, as IT professionals, is to demystify technology, is to explain it to people, to inspire people with what they can do with technology. So, if you do find yourself talking acronyms, or if you, start behaving as some people do, like we're the priests of an obscure religion that nobody else is allowed to understand, it's a mystery, be very, very careful, because people will switch off and they won't get it. Next, please. And they were all this lot. Understand your CEO's business strategy and support it. I mean, that's really why you're there. You're not an academic IT department pushing the boundaries of research. What you're there for, and this applies as much to a government department or a charity in the charitable sector, but in terms of the private sector, what's the boss want to do? What's the transformation he or she is trying to make in their business? And get on that agenda. There are 10 million other distractions, but at the end of the day, they are presumably the person that appointed you. What do they want? What do they want from their technology? It may be they want it to run very smoothly and very cheaply. That's great. It may be that they want it to totally transform the business. As we are in retail, the place is absolutely changing because business is going online, and absolutely having a multi-channel retail site is absolutely where you have to go. Very, very different, but get on the key agenda. Next, please. Managing your team. Getting the IT organization structure right. This isn't easy. I think there's some fundamentals here, but it is so important to actually have a cohesive, functional top team that is pulling together, that is aligned. And really, I think it's pretty simple. What you need are some people who design the technology, the new technology, do the architecture. You need some people who build the new stuff. You've got some people who operate and run it. And they're really three key boxes. Now, you can have different numbers of people in those, but design, delivery, operate are really the heart of it. You need somebody then to actually look after the business, keep the scores, keep the money, and then you need the relationship managers or manager out front. Very important, that. Next one. And all this stuff, which is in there, but personally, review projects. If you like, those are the big set pieces. Those are the cup finals of the IT world, where you are putting in a new system. Now, we all know that actually sometimes you can put things in quiet live and introduce them, and that's great, and I'm sure we'd all do it that way. But sometimes you have no alternative but to pull a metaphorical big red lever, turn the old system off, and bring the new one up. And at that point, you are going to be answerable to the chief executive and the board or the minister or whoever it is about whether that works. So you really, really, really need to assure yourself personally that it's going to. And I've had some near misses and some very difficult launches. And I attribute some of those things to not being that personally involved. So don't get involved in everything, but absolutely get involved in the key launches, the big launches where your reputation, the company's reputation, your department's reputation, and how your customers feel about you is at stake.